Good morning, students. Today we will see about the brain. Introduction to brain. Brain is one of the largest and most important complex organ of our body. Every human being and animals also have a brain. How the brain is made up of? Brain is made up of 100 billion nerves, and it is communicating, connecting with the trillions connections are there, like many connections cables are there. It's all made up of by the neurons. Okay, neurons means how the neuron will be looks like. The neurons have dendrites and will be axon. In the neuron there is a nucleus. So the nucleus mainly have a cell body, but nucleus. These are the neurons. So the neurons also playing a main important role. This one. Before that, like there are many kind of neurons there, like a bipolar neuron, and will be the multipolar neuron. Multipolar neurons will be you can see in the brain and the spinal cord, and dendrites will be the receive the information, and it will pass the information to the axons. Okay. And then the bipolar neuron means many things: retina and inner ear, olfaction. Unipolar will be the peripheral neuron, nervous system, like sensory nervous system. You can find it. Okay. So the brain is already made up of by the neurons, neurons, glial cells, which are okay. So before that, how these neurons, everything we are learning, but you should know how the brain is being developed during the embryonic life. So in the embryonic life, how the where it is developed and how it is developed, when it is being developed, we can see the 16th day of the embryonic life. It is developed from the ectoderm. Ectoderm is the outer layer. Ectoderm, mesoderm, and endoderm is there. In between, that the black portion is called the notochord. So from the notochord, this ectoderm, from the ectoderm only, this is the ectoderm. There is a development from the ectoderm. The upper portion is the ectoderm. It's called the neural plate is forming. From the neural plate, it makes like a small bending. This is the neural plate, small bending like a. So it makes like a groove, like a structure. So this groove like a structure, it is forming in the ectoderm. It is called the neural groove. So this neural groove, it's like a fold. Okay. So then slowly it's growing and it is fusing together, and it is forming the neural tube. Understand? So the neural tube only forming. Then what is this one in the neural this one, there are so small cells are present. This is called the neural crust. Okay. So the neural, when this forming, this is a neural crust. From this neural crust, okay, so this is a neural ectoderm. Neural ectoderm is like ectoderm in the 16th day of embryonic life. From the ectoderm is a notochord, neural plate, and then neural plate forms like a groove, and the groove are joining together, and it's formed the neural tube. And these cells, how these cells, these crust cells, neural crust, these are all the crust cells are present in the groove. This is a neural crust. From the neural crust cells, there is most of the peripheral nervous systems are developing. And then ectodermal placidos. Placidos means in the neural plate, neuroepithelium within the surface of the ectoderm. From the epithelium, there is a cranial nerve and hypothalamus, master gland, inner eye, all inner ear it started to developed. So this is the development. So before the mother knows she is pregnant, like it started to develop. So the mother has to be very 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 careful, and to prevent the neural tube disorders, and she has to take a folic acid tablet that will be support the formation of the neural tube. Otherwise, some of the congenital anomaly, mother will be prone to it. So once you plan for this pregnancy, to support this neural tube development, they will be giving folic acid tablets. Okay, from the neural tube and neural crest, from this ectoderm, from this one, many cells are started to develop. Ganglionic cells, Schwann cells started to develop, and the cells of the adrenal, all will be started to formulate. The different cells will be forming. All these forms the great central nervous system started to develop. Okay, now we will see how the neural tube, this one. First we are going to concentrate about the brain. In the brain, what we are going to, so neural tube. So in overall, what I would like to say is, the brain is developed in the 16th day of the embryonic life, where it is developed from the ectoderm. From the ectoderm, the notochord developed, neural plate is formed, and then the neural plate middle there is a fold will be forming. Fold forms like a groove like a structure, and then this groove will be closing together, form a neural tube. There is a cells which is present is called the neural crest. The neural crest, and these cells and all different cells, like different cells that forms a different part of the body. Now with this neural tube, now you see this is the neural tube. From the neural tube started to bulge its portions, it forms like the cavities, and it forms the forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain. So you can remember like this is a forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain. So okay, this forebrain made up of excuse me, forebrain, the cells made up of the prosencephalon, midbrain is a mesencephalon and the rhombencephalon. From the neural tube, this bulging started to come, and this is a neural tube. Then in the prosencephalon, in the upper part, again there is two cavities will be forming, and it is started to develop some cells called the telencephalon, and the deeper part, and two different, this one telencephalon and the diencephalon. And already in the eye we have seen from the diencephalon only, then out pouch it's starting, like optic disc is starting. From this optic disc, there's from the optic disc, what is coming, retina is started to forming. So then slowly from the hindbrain, everything, cerebellum, all started to forming from this area of the brain. We are not going to see in that detail, but you should know in where, how the brain is being developed from the embryonic life, from the ectoderm or mesoderm, endoderm. From the ectoderm, how the forming the neural plate, and from the groove and neural tubes and the crust cells are forming. So neural tube forming the CNS, mainly by the this one central nervous systems are forming the first only, and then neural crest forming the peripheral nervous system, and ectodermal plates are forming the hypophysis, pituitary gland and other things, all the cells. So many cells are forming some structure of the brain. So if you see this neural tube are bulging, enlarging and remodeling it and making these cells, frozen cephalons becoming telencephalon, and deeper part become the diencephalon, like that. Then hindbrain, cerebellum, all these started to develop, and the retina also started to develop. Then the brain is forming. Here the surface is called the gray matter. So the gray matter is called the cortex of the brain. Here why there is a gray matter? Here in the neurons have a lot of cell bodies. So these cell bodies, all the neurons are present here. The cell body are present, and the axons are like a tails. So many neurons are forming, and a lot of neurons are present, arranged in this one, and axons are present over here. So these neuron cell body form like a gray color in structure, and the axons will be in a, axons are really going down. So the collections of these collections of axons are called the white matter. So many fibers are going. So the nucleus, axons are not having a nucleus, so they are not showing any colors, but the neurons are having nucleus or having nucleus then the surface gray matter of this cortex is full of axons. This is axons and also these neurons and axons. This is a gray matter and also the white matter. So these axons are coming down, downward fibers are coming down. So these fibers are actually coming down. When it is coming to the brainstem, it is actually crossing over. The right axons are going to the left brain and going to in the brainstem, the major crossing over, forming some reticular formation. So the reticular formation, major crossing over taken place within the gray matter. So when in the spinal cord, if you see in the spinal cord, it is really opposite. But in the brain, gray matter is present in the outside, but white matter is present in the inside. But in the spinal cord, there will be gray matter will be inside and the white matter will be outside. In the gray matter, in the white matter, the group of axons are moving forward and moving upward. This is called the track. So this track, this is once that there are the two types of tracks are present. What is this called? Ascending track and the descending tract. So these are all motor information carrying downwards, what sensory information taking upwards. So it is called ascending track and it will be going descending track. There are multiple pieces of the gray matter in the deeper portion of the brain. So these multiple gray matters together in the cerebral hemispheres, it is called the basal ganglion. Okay, understand? For example, this is a deeper part of the diencephalon, but there are the basal ganglion will be present. This basal ganglion. Why this basal ganglion? Why in the deeper portion of the white matter there is a gray matter is present? Because, for example, in an ophthalmic nerve, the bulk of the ophthalmic nerve are passing. So in that, nuclei are present in each nerve. So that bulk of the nerves forming as called the basal nuclei. Okay, and brain have the two hemispheres, right or not? The two hemispheres are also connected by the brain. This is the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere. Right and left hemispheres are connected by the commissional fibers. Also, the brain is connected by the anterior and the posterior. Anterior and posterior connecting, it is called the association fibers. So, these are all called in the white matter cable systems. It is all made up of cables. It is like a connecting wires and cables and passing the informations. Okay, so in the brain overall we are seeing about gray matter and the white matter. Why the gray matter? Gray matter is have a cell body and the axons are there. Axon, there is no cell body, that is forms the white matter. But in the deeper portions there are basal ganglion. The deeper gray matter is present within the white matter. So that's called the basal nuclei. What is this nuclei? Because many nerves are track of nerves are passing, like ophthalmic or auditory nerves are crossing in the white matter, that in the nuclei, olfactory nerves nuclei or optic nerve nuclei, or together forming a structure is called the gray color structure of a nuclei. It is called the basal nuclei. And this white matter also, it's connected by the different fibers, like right and left hemispheres are connected by the commissional fiber. So we are thinking corpus callosum is the biggest commissional fiber, and the front and back layers of the white matter also connected with each other by the cable system. These fibers are called the association fiber. And the brain is kept with covering. It's a protective covering God has created. That protective covering is called the skull. Understand? So the skull. Under the skull, the first one, dura mater, arachnoid matter, and biomatter. Within the arachnoid matter and biomatter, that's a space is called the subarachnoid space. So subarachnoid space where the cerebrospinal fluid will be there, and the circle of Willis is floating in the subarachnoid space. So this is how you have to when they are asking about the coverings of the brain, you should know. And the importance of the subarachnoid space. Some arachnoid villi is also present. So when the CSF also cerebrospinal fluid will be absorbed there. It's a choroid plexus is secreting the CSF fluid, but it is coming to the lateral ventricle, fourth ventricle, third ventricle, and it is absorbed in the arachnoid villi. So you should know what is covering. If a 2 mark it is coming, you can write only this one. And during the ventricles of the brain, we will see in a detail. So now what you have seen, one introduction to the brain, actually how the brain is being developed. Okay, it is developed from the embryonic life, from the ectoderm, how this neural plate, a neural groove, and neural fold forming the neural groove, and neural tubes are forming, and then some cells are present, it's called the neural crest, and neural crest cells are forming mostly peripheral nervous system, and will be the another ectodermal. In some of the cells are present in the neuroepithelial. Within the surface of ectoderm, some cells are present. There hypophysis like pituitary gland and cranial sensory nerve and inner ear, all it is developing. Okay, so some of the cells are coming from these one. Many cells, Schwann cells, like glial cells, ganglionic cells, all are forming the central nervous system. Understand? This is how these are all the stages of the development. Finally, it is formed like a tube, like a structure is called the neural tube. Okay, most important part of the central nervous system, development of central nervous system through the neural tube. Then there will be bulging, the cavities are forming. Then it is the different cells, forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain. Then forebrain again, it's a cavities forms and different kinds of cells are coming. Then in the deeper portion is called the diencephalon, where the retina is started to develop. And if you see in the forebrain, that's a gray matter is there, in the white matter is there, and there are different cells started to form, and this is the deeper portion part of the diencephalon is present. Okay, then will be the smallest brain is one is called this cut section. You can see this is called the midbrain. Then midbrain, next to the midbrain there is a pons, and then medulla oblongata, spinal cord. This is called the cerebellum. Are you understanding? So the bonds, it is bridging between the midbrain and the medulla. Okay, this is how the brain started to develop from this stage to this stage to this stage it is coming. Meanwhile, olfactory, optic, every nerve cells are started to develop it. Then why in the brain? We have seen why the brain have a gray matter and the white matter, because brain is made up of million of neurons. Okay, these neurons actually will having a cell body. The cell body is having a nucleus, cytoplasm. So all cell bodies are arranged here in a cortex area. These having a nucleus, so it is looks like a gray in structure, so it's forming the gray color. Axons do not have a nucleus, so million of axons, the cables are coming down to this gray matter, and so it is looks like a white matter. So it is a gray matter outside and the white matter inside. Even though there is a white matter is inside the brain, in a deeper portion of the brain, some of the basal nuclei is present. Basal nuclei is nothing but there is a track of the nucleus is passing from some of the ophthalmic tract and many tracts. These nucleus together looks like a nuclei, basal nuclei. And also the hemispheres are connected by various fiber. Right and left hemispheres are connected by the big commissional fibers. So this corpus callosum is then the right and anterior and posterior is called the association fibers. So it is actually the brain is completely connecting structures. And when these cables are coming to this down part, where this in this area they are crossing over with each other. So when they are getting crossing over with each other, when the main brain, the outer matter is mainly by the gray in color and the inner will be white in color since it is crossing over taken place. And in the spinal cord, if you see the cut section, the middle portion will be full of gray in color and the outer portion will be the oppositely white in matter. And since the fibers are crossing over with each other, there is a network like a structure is forming. This is called reticular formation. Understand? So this is about the small introductions about the development of the brain, neural tube and the nervous system, and the from the nervous system how the brain is developed. So brain is kept in the safest place is called the skull, and it has many coverings, or the meninges are present covering of the layer, like we can say it is like a dura mater, arachnoid matter and the pia mater. And the arachnoid matter and the pia matter, there is a subarachnoid space where the cerebrospinal fluid is also there, and will be the circle of Willis floating in the subarachnoid space. This much information about the introduction and the development of the neural tube and the brain. In next video, we will see about what are all the lobes of the brain and what are all the functions of each areas of the brain.